Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the PAWS Australia webinar. We're just going to give it one more minute or so just for more people to join, and then we will get started. Thank you. Okay, fantastic. I think we can get started now. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for the PAWS Australia's very first webinar. My name is Elise Burgess, and I'm Head of Communications at PAWS Australia, and I'll be your chair for this evening's session. Before we begin, I would just like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we all meet today. We pay our respects to the elders of all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander nations past and present, and we acknowledge and celebrate their enduring connections to country. So, first things first, we're really pleased to have you all join us for tonight's webinar, Behind the Rescue and Beyond the Headlines. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. This session will run for approximately 1 hour, ending at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And all audience microphones and cameras have been turned off just to ensure your privacy and also allow you to focus on the presentations. We'll have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentations. The question box, though, is open. So please feel free to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. And if you are joining us via a mobile device and the Teams app, just click on the 3 dots to see the Q&A function. And of course, we'll do our best to get through as many questions as possible. But if you do see a question that someone else has asked that you would also like answered, there actually is an upvote function in the chat. So feel free to throw any upvotes on someone else's question that you also would like answered. Thank you. So today you will hear from 3 excellent speakers, each covering a different PAWS mission or campaign that you have supported through your very generous donations and your petition actions. So without further ado, let's get started. So our first speaker today will be Pia Einheimler. So Pia is an international animal rescue specialist with PAWS. And she has a background that spans psychology, animal behaviour and veterinary practice. And Pia coordinates and supports complex, high-profile rescue operations across crisis zones, from planning through to the hands-on field work. And tonight she will be sharing first-hand insights from the Argentina emergency mission and just what it takes to save animals under challenging conditions. So please join me in welcoming Pia.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today. I'm Pia. I'm based in Vienna, Europe. And before I start, I really want to thank you for supporting our work and for caring about the animals. And today I want to take you behind the scenes of the largest emergency mission PAWS has ever conducted. Some of the images might be difficult to see, but they're important. And now I want to show you a video as an impression for you to see what our team walked into Argentina. So I was involved in this mission from the very beginning, from the early stages of preparation and planning, from the stages of the veterinary assessment, taking over a month, and then, of course, through the first rescues. Altogether, I spent almost 3 months in Argentina working alongside an amazing team and caring and working for the animals. And honestly, after being like such a long time on site and working for this project, these images still affect me kind of emotionally, because we have over 60 big cats and 2 bears that spend years of their life in deteriorating conditions, in overcrowded cages, and with chronic suffering. And I want to show you today what this mission really looked like, not only the suffering we encountered, but also this amazing resilience the animals showed, the incredible teamwork behind this operation, and how your support, of course, helped create hope. So why Argentina? To understand why this mission became so urgent, it's important to also understand the background. The former Zoo Luján in Argentina was established in the 19th, and it was very well known as a tourist attraction, allowing direct contact with the animals, especially with wild animals like lions, tigers, bears, and many other species. In 2020, the authorities shut down the zoo because of serious animal welfare concerns. However, despite the enclosure, the animals remained on site in the zoo in very inappropriate conditions, without any veterinary care and without proper husbandry management. And then finally, in July last year, 2025, PAWS signed a memorandum of understanding with the Argentina government to contribute to a long-term systemic change regarding the overall big cat welfare situation in the whole country. And the welfare crisis in the former Zoo Luján became our first priority under this agreement. So when I first arrived, this whole place felt super surreal. Broken infrastructure, rusty cages, the tiny barren enclosures, and despite this huge size of the facility, of the premises, the animals themselves actually had no space available. So half of the animals were cramped in tiny enclosures over each other. Others lived completely in isolation. So already at the start, it became very, very clear how urgent this mission really was. Yeah, and the scale of this operation was actually massive. Like on 16 intensive days, we worked simultaneously with 2 veterinary teams and often examined up to 8 animals per day. We treated severe open wounds, injuries, including like tail amputations. We nurtured all the male animals. We discovered neurological disorders and chronic illnesses, all because of years of neglect and inappropriate keeping. Most of the animals we also discovered being declawed, which is a very cruel but common practice in human entertainment with wild animals to make the animals safer for human interactions. So for the animals, it means like long-term health consequences and welfare consequences, but they also suffered behavioral trauma and chronic stress. And at the same time, I also have to mention that the team really worked through very heavy situations. We encountered flooding, heavy rains, the whole terrain being covered in mud. So we really had difficult safety and logistical challenges. And what we found was that behavior often reflected suffering, like animals that showed aggression, withdrawal, fear, they often had really severe underlying medical conditions. We had also some lionesses collapsing, just walking through the enclosures because of the spinal and neurological problems. Others had lived years of over 10, 15 years with pain. You can see on the bottom Tigress Kimi. She always withdrew herself. We never got to see her. And when we examined her, we found that she had an ingrown claw that continued over 10 years growing inside, which caused her massive pain. And after the surgery, even within days, we could see a change and shift in her behavior. She actually was a completely different tigress after that. At the top, you can see Lion's Car. He needed urgent eye surgery. He got this injury because of a fight with his companions, which was also because of unnatural social groupings. And he's also declawed, so he was not able to defend himself against his companions. I think most of the animals also had broken teeth with open root canals. I think every one of us can only imagine how incredibly painful this is. And despite all this pain, the animals showed so much resilience. And this is really something I will never forget and what I'm very impressed about animals. And among all the animals, we quickly discovered our 2 most urgent warfare cases, the bears Gordo and Florencia, and not because their medical conditions were immediately life-threatening, but because of the conditions they were forced to live in on a daily basis their whole life, and they're 16 years old. Gordo is super, super heavy. He has 350 kilograms, and he only has a very tiny cage. He had an only tiny cage available where he could just turn around. He had no outdoor access, no stimulation. He could not express any natural behavior. And similar also, the female bear Florencia, in her concrete enclosure, she had a small dirty pool. She sometimes even chose to sleep in there. So both of them never could show any natural behavior like exploring, foraging, or not even speaking about hibernation. And you could see really the resignation. And it became very clear for us that no meaningful long-term solutions could be provided on site at the former Luján, and that they really became our urgent cases for relocation. So after we finished the veterinary assessments, we immediately started implementing temporary welfare improvements while also preparing the 2 bears for the really much needed relocation. We adapted their diets to species appropriate food. We quickly found out and discovered that bear Gordo loves cherries. So it was very, very easy to motivate him for the crate training, which is necessary for safe transport. And you could see that like curiosity and trust really developed with the bears, and they engaged in the training and with the caretakers, and they even started to show and express natural behavior. When we provided them with hay bedding, they started, for example, nest building. At the same time, the reality was still the same, that the former zoo could never provide what these bears really, really needed, and this is why this relocation was such an urgent priority. And before I move forward with our bears, I want to say that this mission would have never been possible without an extraordinary team effort. The team was really working over a long period of time under enormous pressures. And honestly, the conditions we faced on a daily basis were extremely difficult. I mentioned it before. One morning, for example, we woke up to heavy storms. Even the hotel grounds were covered with floods. And when we came to the zoo, trees have fallen on the enclosure fences. The whole territory was covered with mud that we could not even move forward with the pickups to transport the animals, and the veterinary tent was also flooded with mud. We actually were worried that we could not continue our work for some days, but we are trained as a team to face these challenges, to adapt quickly and be flexible, and we found solutions. And luckily, we could move forward the same day with the examinations of the animals. And I really have to say, I think like what I will always remember is the team spirit, because even after long, intensive days, the colleagues still supported each other and stepped in wherever need was wherever the help was really needed. And then finally, the big rescue day came for the bears, and with the first animals leaving the former zoo. And for that, please join me watching the rescue video of Gordo and Florencia. So today, Gordo and Florencia are finally experiencing a completely different reality. At For PAWS Bear Sanctuary Bilica in Bulgaria, they have now access to forests, enrichment like pools and ponds. They receive tailored diets, specialized veterinary care, and of course, safety for the rest of their lives. And for the first time in their life, they can really, choose to express natural behaviors, to forage, to roam distances, and maybe they even choose to hibernate at the end of this year. We will see. And because for the bears, the relocation is not just moving them from A to B, it's really a change of life. It's a change of experience. And now they have the possibility to experience life which meets actually their physical and emotional needs. And the bears were only the beginning. The mission in Argentina is far from over. Our teams continue tirelessly working on long-term solutions for the remaining big cats at the former zoo, including further veterinary care, improved husbandry, and we are also working on future relocations. So something exciting coming up. Please stay tuned for the Argentina mission. And at the same time, PAWS is also working together with the Argentina government to support a broader systemic change regarding captive big cats in the entire country. Because ultimately, this mission is not only about rescuing individual animals, but it's really helping to create a better future for big cats and wild animals that they have never to face situations again, like in the former Luján. And before I finish, I just really want to say thank you, because none of this work would have been possible without supporters like you. And every surgery, every treatment, every rescue, every improvement that we could do is only possible because people like you choose to care for animals. And yeah, we are very, very grateful that we have you on this journey with us. And I want to say a big thank you from the team, but also, of course, from the animals. And we really hope that you will continue following the Argentina mission with us, because there's still much more to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pia. It's always just such an incredible story, and it's amazing to hear from the front line. So thank you so much. Just a reminder for those who are joining us now, you can submit your questions using the Q&A function. Best to use this one rather than the hands up functionality, as this way our team will see your question and we can make sure that we can get to as many as possible. So now our next speaker is Louise Ward, Programs Lead at PAWS Australia. So Louise leads our work here in Australia, focusing on campaigns to end the cruel treatment of animals, including, but certainly not limited to, puppy and kitten farming, long-distance road transport of farmed animals, live lamb cutting, and animals used in textiles. And so on this last point, tonight Louise will be sharing the latest in our Fur Free Australia campaign. Please join me in welcoming Louise.
Thanks, Elise, and thanks, Pia, for all the amazing work you and the rescue team do. I've been at PAWS for nearly 2 years now, but I remember when I started as part of the onboarding and the induction, I just watched so many videos of these amazing rescues in conflict zones and just the most horrendous conditions. And I was just, so overwhelmed with the care and the dedication to each individual animal. So yeah, thanks again, Pia. Right, so today I'm going to talk about our work here in Australia to end the global fur trade. But before I get into that, just as Elise mentioned, I wanted to quickly mention some of the other campaigns that we work on here, which includes achieving legislation to phase out the brutal and outdated practice of live lamb cutting, also known as mulesing. Ending long-distance animal transport, because right now it is legal in Australia to keep a sheep or a cow on a transport truck without access to water for 48 hours. And we will continue to get legislation that outlaws puppy farming across every state and territory. And that work includes addressing the growing and largely unregulated online trade in cats and dogs, puppies and kittens. But today I'm here to focus on our work to end the cruel fur trade. The global fur industry, once a dominant force in luxury fashion, is now in steep decline. Historically driven by production in China and parts of Europe, this sector has faced mounting ethical scrutiny, public health concerns, and shifting consumer attitudes. And today, legislative bans, corporate commitments, and collapsing demand are reshaping the industry, signaling an irreversible move away from fur. The global momentum to end the fur trade is building, and an end to this cruel industry is within our grasp. And whilst here in Australia we do not farm fur, we play a role in keeping the industry going through the fact that we allow the import and sale of fur. Today I'll give a quick overview of the current state of the fur industry and then really focus in on our work here to create a fur-free Australia. PAWS has been fighting to end the farming and trade of fur for nearly 40 years. This image is our founder, Heli Dungler, on the streets of Vienna in 1988. Street actions like this one started our fur campaign, drawing public attention to the suffering of animals on Austria's 60+ fur farms. This activism, alongside strategic campaigning, government advocacy, lobbying, and mass mobilization, helped build momentum that would lead to a complete legislative ban on fur farming in Austria. The last fur farm closed in 1998, with legislation effectively banning fur farming passed in 2005. There are now 17 countries across Europe who have complete or partial bans on fur farming, showing that this is really possible. And as I said previously, it is within our grasp to end this cruel, outdated industry. Animal welfare. Fur farming is cruel. I don't need to tell anybody here that. And I know you're probably thinking that, why did we need a scientific report in 2025 to tell us that fur is cruel? But unfortunately, the fact is that to successfully advocate with MPs, decision makers, and fashion brands to achieve the end of this industry, we still need these reports. And this report, released in July last year, provides a scientific basis for an EU-wide ban on fur farming and fur products. It also strips away the fur industry's last defense, the idea that fur farming can be humane. This is the most authoritative scientific condemnation of fur farming ever issued by an EU institution. And as I said, it sets the scene for an EU-wide ban. And if Europe bans fur farming and fur sales, it will reshape the global market and create a powerful precedent for countries like Australia to ban import and sales. And this is why the European Food and Safety Authority report is not just another report, it is a historic turning point. Many people might not know that serious environment on fur farming, and if you listen to the industry, they would have you believe that this is a clean and green industry. But despite claims of sustainability, multiple studies and ruling by authorities confirm that marketing fur as eco-friendly is false and misleading. Life cycle analysis finds that mink fur coat has the climate impact 5 times higher than a fake fur coat, which is a completely different narrative to what we hear around fur being a natural product. It's far from natural. Fur pelts are treated with hazardous chemicals like formaldehyde and chromium to prevent decay, and these chemicals, along with animal waste runoff, pollute soil, waterways, harming ecosystem and posing health risks to workers and consumers. And it's really important that we get ahead of this narrative that the industry is trying to create around faux fur being a problem for the environment when it is in fact real animal fur. Pandemics, fur farming poses a huge pandemic risk. And during the pandemic, most of you will remember that hundreds of mink farms worldwide reported SARS and COVID outbreaks leading to mass kills. 17 million mink were killed in Denmark alone, and millions of animals were culled on fur farms across the world, with experts warning that fur farming is an obvious route for the next pandemic. As you can see from this graph, there has been a serious decline in the fur industry over the last 10 years. So fur production globally, unequivocally on the decline, with 140 million foxes, mink and raccoon dogs killed on fur farms in 2014, down to 25 million animals killed in 2024. That's an 85% decline. China remains the world's top producer, followed by Poland. And Poland just last year announced that they were banning fur farming, then Finland and Greece. So whilst this is a really hopeful picture, obviously, this serious decline, when we look at those figures, 140 million animals trapped in this industry down to 25 million, still I think of those 25 million individual animals trapped in some of the worst conditions. So it's really important that even though the fur industry looks like, it is on the decline, we have to fight really hard to make sure that we end this industry for good. Many of you will remember in the 1990s, I think the world declared that fur is dead. There was a mass advertising campaign. It felt like fur was dead, but yet 30 years later, millions of animals are still suffering in an industry that exists for one reason only, and that's profit. And I don't think we can underestimate how fiercely the industry will fight to protect the money it makes, or how determined the individuals within it are to keep that system alive. And when we look at these numbers, an 85% decline, we say surely the industry knows they're on borrowed time, but they don't. So we have to fight. Now it's our job more than ever to fight to keep the pressure on. And that's why the work that we're doing in Australia to get legislative bans on imports and sales is helping to both remove the economic incentive and the social license of this industry and end fur for good. So why an Australian fur ban matters. Since 2019, PAWS has been investigating and exposing multiple products made from real animal fur being sold as faux fur or not labelled at all. And this is both an animal cruelty issue and a consumer deception issue. And we've been very our campaign on that dual track. Yes, fur is cruel, but it is also deceptive, and most Australians don't want to buy fur. And that consumer deception angle has been incredibly effective with media and policymakers. Public opinion is very clear. A national YouGov poll shows nearly 80% of Australians support a fur ban, and more than 76,000 people have already signed our petition to ban the retail sales of fur in New South Wales and Victoria. Yet despite this strong opposition, Australia continues to import millions of dollars worth of fur products every year, which is why we need a Fur-Free Australia campaign to pressure the government to deliver legislation that reflects community sentiment and values around animal welfare. Australia already has a clear legal precedent for banning fur. Since 2004, importing cat and dog fur has been illegal under the Customs Act. This was an explicitly cruelty-based ban. The government accepted that the conditions under which cats and dogs were bred and killed for fur were too cruel for those products to be permitted in Australia. And of course, if it's too cruel for a cat and dog, surely it's too cruel for a fox, a mink, a raccoon dog, or a rabbit. And this will form a key part of our federal import ban strategy. But a law that isn't enforced, as we all know, is meaningless. And when we asked Australian Border Force how many seizures had occurred since the cat and dog ban came into force, the answer was 0. Not a single confiscation in over 20 years. But we know cat and dog fur is sold here. In 2025, some of you will remember a jacket made from cat fur was purchased from a retail store in Melbourne. There was a huge public outcry about this and widespread media coverage. We were interviewed on national ABC News, which was syndicated across the country, which exposed a really underlying problem that Australia's current framework allows cruelty to persist, misleads consumers, and depends on enforcement systems that simply don't work. And that's why it's time for a Fur-Free Australia. And this slide shows a preview of the Fur-Free Australia campaign website, which we plan to launch publicly in July. And from the outset, we've designed this as a national campaign working across 3 levels of government: federal, state, and local. At the federal level, our focus is on import bans because only the Commonwealth has the power to stop fur entering the country. At the state level, the focus is on retail sales ban. Retail sales bans can only be achieved at the state level. And we have 7 states and territories, so we have a lot of work to do. And on the local level, we're building momentum and public support through our local council campaign, which I will talk a little bit more about. I've added this slide here into the middle of the Australian section because we are implementing strategies that have been successful elsewhere. In 2019, California passed legislation that bans the import and retail sale of fur. And on January 1st, 2023, that legislation was implemented. How did they do it? They employed a local first, state next strategy. They built support for a fur ban through the achievement of local bans, and we're following the very same strategy in New South Wales. PAWS in Switzerland spent over 10 years exposing failed labelling and compliance laws around the trade of fur. And finally, last year, the importation of cruelly produced fur was banned. And it's expected that the retail ban will be passed this year. The Fur-Free Britain campaign is building, and PAWS in the UK works alongside a coalition of other animal welfare orgs on the Fur-Free Britain campaign. And our Fur-Free campaign will follow a similar model, building cross-party political support, getting other animal welfare and protection orgs involved, and of course, celebrities. And hopefully soon you will see an image of Ricky Gervais holding up his palm displaying the Fur-Free Australia logo. Victoria is the state where we've made the most progress so far. After the cat jacket was exposed, we built on the momentum by coordinating an open letter to the Minister for Fair Trading, who is the minister that has the power to ban the retail sale of fur. This was signed by 21 national and international organisations and published in The Age. But it was the Victorian-specific polling that we commissioned that really helped move the government. The polling showed only 3% of Victorians would consider buying fur, with more than 75% supporting a retail ban. The polling removed any political risk for the government. It showed not only that the government would not lose votes by introducing a fur ban, but that a fur ban was in fact a vote winner. And that support was cutting across social, demographic, and political lines. And a bill to ban fur has been drafted in Victoria, and that we are very hopeful this bill will be introduced into Parliament before the state election in November this year. New South Wales is quite a different political environment, generally more conservative, and we have a different strategy. The images that you can see on this slide, and I have one of the items here, are items we purchased at Sydney markets. They look fake. They feel fake to the untrained eye, but when we sent these products away for testing, we discovered that they were this was rabbit fur, and this keyring here contained grey fox fur. So we've briefed the Minister for Fair Trading, key independents, Labor MPs, the Greens, the Animal Justice Party, and there's growing media interest in this kind of deceptive practices of products that appear to be fake fur, labelled a fake fur, or not labelled at all. We're continuing to purchase and test products and just seeing how prevalent these products are within the marketplace, and even today received some test results for several products that we purchased online that were marketed as fake fur, and they are real fur. So that is a continuing avenue that we're pursuing with the government. Following the California approach, we are building support and pressure for a statewide ban through achieving local council bans. And in terms of our local strategy in New South Wales, we now have 7 councils, including the City of Sydney, that have adopted fur-free policies. Just last week, the Northern Beaches Council went fur-free, which was amazing. We have a dedicated fur-free New South Wales working groups with 17 members who are working to get bans at their local councils. These bans that we're achieving at the local level are only possible because we are joining forces with dedicated animal-loving community members who are engaging with their councillors and engaging with their councillors around the fact that they, as local constituents, want to get bans on council land. And this is significant in itself, that fur stalls would no longer be able to attend markets or events, but also it really builds the pressure that we need for a statewide sales ban. I know I'm running out of time, so this is a kind of overwhelming slide, but it's a really important slide because it just shows that there has been an incredible number of wins just in the last 12 months on fur. And I won't read through everything, but definitely it is just more and more evidence that the momentum is growing. I have a very, very short video to play, and I really want you to enjoy this video. It's from one of 4 Paws sanctuaries in Germany, featuring 2 Arctic foxes who were rescued from a fur farm in Poland. And also note the cute little guy in the top right-hand corner there. He's a raccoon dog. He was also rescued from a Polish fur farm, and now he's living out his life in one of our species-appropriate sanctuaries, foraging, exploring, living his life as close to a natural life as he can. So I shall just play this video, and hopefully it's working. Yeah, and thank you so much, everybody, for coming along. And I'll just leave that up there for a second. That's a link to join the Fur Free Australia campaign. Obviously, we will send that out with the email as well. And I'll hand back to you, Elise.
Thank you so much, Louise. Yeah, I think none of us ever get sick of those first moments when an animal steps into their new home. It's truly heartwarming. So thanks for ending your presentation on that nice note. Our final speaker tonight is Matt Backhouse. He's our global expert for stray animals in need of care at PAWS. And Matt has extensive experience in companion animal management and expertise in areas including the dog and cat meat trade, rabies control, One Health, and humane population management. Please join me in welcoming Matt.
Perfect. Thank you, Elise, and thanks, Louise and Pia as well. Really lovely to be part of this event, and a hard act to follow both of those excellent presentations. Just give me 1 second while I get the slides working. Go. Okay. Yep, so as Elise mentioned, my name is Matt. I'm originally from the UK, but I've been living and working in Thailand, where I'm based for the last 16 years now. But I work extensively throughout Southeast Asia, and I split my work between stray animal care program and dog and cat meat trade work, which will be the focus of this short presentation. So what I'm going to talk about is kind of the last year, really, and the 3 main target countries that we work on, which are Vietnam, Indonesia, and Cambodia. I'm going to look at a little bit of the history of what we've achieved so far, and then I'm going to give you an insight into what might be coming up in our work in the future and ways that you can hopefully support us and continue to make our work possible by your generosity and your continued support. So we've had a global petition running since 2019, and over 2 million people across the world have signed this petition. We've had various events and hands-in, and you can see here images from some of our different country offices where the petition hand-in has taken place. So the first of our kind of target countries is Vietnam. We approximate there's about 2 to 3 million dogs and about 1 million cats per year that are killed for their meat in Vietnam alone. It's one of the countries that we've been working in the longest, since 2019. We really wanted to focus on a campaign that recognizes and understands the whys and the kind of behaviors of dog meat and the various complexities that go on there. But what's important for us is to recognize that this really is a very minority consumption audience in Vietnam. There is huge public sentiment against it. So really we want to engage with Vietnamese people who love animals, who want to protect dogs and cats and don't support dog meat and don't see it as part of Vietnamese culture. You can see here, sorry, some of these campaign graphics that we've had in the past, essentially saying this is not Vietnamese culture, this is not what Vietnamese people want. We've done a number of different activities in Vietnam. One of the key ones was in Hoi An, which is a city in central Vietnam, where over 2 years we worked with the People's Committee to phase out dog and cat meat in the city. We did that in a number of different ways, but we primarily wanted to support with veterinary services, so rabies vaccinations and access to sterilization for people who owned animals. One of the big problems in the city is that pet theft is really common as well. So you would find that people often have their animals stolen, often when they're locked inside compounds or gated properties. So we had to work on a lot of different complex issues to really support people. We had a good success in that we closed one of the last dog meat selling restaurants in the center of Hoi An. You can see me here with the gentleman, the owner of that business, who it's often complex because there might be judgments that we make about why people are doing this or the kind of attitudes, but really, like in many places, people are trying to make a living, trying to make ends meet. You know, this guy was really lovely and was very happy to have the opportunity to not be selling dog meat and to have a different kind of future. So we have to look at local interventions and actions, but we also need to look at national change. So PAWS has become the first animal welfare organization to join what's called the One Health Partnership for Zoonosis Control in Vietnam. I know it's not a very catchy name, but essentially what that means is this is a national level working group with all the major stakeholders who have anything to do with companion animals, whether it's from a disease perspective or from One Health or from dog meat trade or food, legislation enforcement as to what is appropriate and legal food for consumption. So now as PAWS, we chair a technical working group which focuses on these issues. So that really gives us a brilliant opportunity to design and implement policies and strategies that will be enacted at a national level. So this is a huge opportunity for change. And the core of our messaging throughout all of this work is you cannot have dog and cat meat trade and solve the problems that you have with rabies or the companion animal issues. So that is at the center of our work. So legislation has to be a cornerstone to see meaningful, long-lasting change. As well as that, we do a lot of different other events. We do participatory events with people in the community. We had a really nice one called the Road to Compassion, where we had a billboard truck driving around Vietnam, kind of like a mobile roadshow. Rather than me describe it badly, I'm just going to play you a quick bit of this video. You can see the full video online. We'll share the link afterwards, but just let you have 1 minute of this to see some of our work in action. Just in the interest of time, I'm going to pause it there, but please check out the video. There's some really interesting and insightful comments from the Vietnamese people that we spoke to, and it was a really good event that demonstrated this is not Europeans coming in making judgments about food. This is really representative of how Vietnamese people see their country. So as well as that, we have a nationwide school program in Vietnam through a partner called eQuest. This is to kind of motivate students to have more compassion, more empathy towards dogs and cats, but also to learn about dangers of dog and cat meat trade, dangers of exposure to rabies and other diseases. And it's been piloted in 10 schools. It's now expanding to a further 30. And this is something that we really hope to develop and see grow over the years. Last but not least, for Vietnam, we have a reporting tool. So essentially, this is how members of the public, Vietnamese and foreigners, visitors alike, can report any incident of dog meat trade activities. If you see a pet being stolen, you see a market, a restaurant, a bus with dogs in the luggage hole, which sounds made up, but is very common, unfortunately. The first week we launched this, we got 4,000 reports. So now this is expanding nationwide, and next month in June, we're going to be doing the same tool, and this will be launching in Cambodia. So again, this is a great way to say to government stakeholders and decision makers, this is not just our opinion, this is evidence-based, and this is what people are seeing and reporting, and it's something that they care about. So whistle-stop tour. So now on to Cambodia. So just to let you know that the dogs that you see in these cages are safe, sound, and rescued. Very cautious of including images of dogs, which are, unfortunately, this is the reality. This is what you see often in Cambodia. This was a van that would transport dogs, which had been picked up from various villages around Cambodia and then transported to holding areas, then onto slaughterhouses, and ultimately ending up in restaurants. Yeah, this is very, very common. And what we're focusing on in Cambodia is one small area. So Siem Reap is a province that maybe you've heard of. I mean, it's very famous for Angkor Wat, the beautiful temple, Tomb Raider, I think, was it? Apart from that, the only thing I'm interested in Siem Reap is that they were the first province in Cambodia to ban the dog and cat meat trade. That's way better than Angkor Wat, in my opinion. In 2020, they did that on the back of some work and effort that we put in with them. And then the next year, 2021, they actually intercepted a van illegally transporting dogs across the province, and then asked PAWS for help with taking care of and kind of finding appropriate homes for these dogs after they were rescued. This actually happened the same week that we were closing a slaughterhouse down. So these images here are from our colleagues in Cambodia, our Khmer team, who were working on closing the slaughterhouse. So suddenly we had a lot of dogs in our care. And what's been amazing is thanks to the brilliant work of our PAWS Cambodia team, all of the dogs were adopted. So you can see here there's some of the picture here of this lovely Cambodian family who took one of our rescue dogs, as well as 3 that they already had. So 56 of the 61 rescue dogs were adopted locally, but we had 5 that we were really struggling to find homes for. And to bear in mind as well that adoption of stray dogs is not as culturally sort of normalized as it might be in countries like Australia or, where I'm from in the UK. So we actually found homes in Cape Town. So we have an office in South Africa, Faux, South Africa, and we worked with a local organization there called Tigress Animal Rescue to help find us loving forever homes for the last 5 dogs. So now in Cambodia, I'll touch on that just at the end of the presentation, but no more dogs in our care. All of them literally escaped, a cruel and horrendous end, and now living their best lives. So these are the kind of things that keep you going when working on difficult, subjects such as this. So Indonesia, last but not least. So primarily there, we work a lot through a partner. We work in a coalition called Dog Meat Free Indonesia, DMFI for short. But we also work with 3 different local organizations, one in Jakarta, one in Bali, and one in a place called Balikpapan, which is the picture here you can see with the people giving the thumbs up, where we have a sun bear rescue center, which also has a stray animal care program that Faux supports. We do a lot of different work in Indonesia, focusing on policy change, veterinary education. We work with vet students, we work with lawmakers, all these different aspects, all centered around our approach to all of these countries, which is this kind of one health approach. Essentially what that means is animals, the environment, and people are interconnected. We can't just look at dog meat on its own. We can't look at rabies. We can't look at stray animal problems in isolation. We have to think of these things holistically and design systems that work on all of these. So this is where I think Faux has a really unique approach, because it's challenging to work like this. It's more complicated. It's more difficult. You have slower immediate progress, but the long-term sustainable impact is so much higher, and it's something that we really believe in. As I say, DMFI, the coalition that we work with, have done amazing work. There's now been lots of regional bans in Indonesia. Indonesia has a very complex legal system in that you can't have just like a national ban straight out to ban dog meat across the country. It's a huge country, with millions of people, 280 million people, thousands of islands, different ethnic groups. So you have to work kind of regency by regency and then move that way. So we've been doing Indonesia-focused work with our partners at DMFI, and also with colleagues at other NGOs, like Humane World and Animals Asia, who are all a part of this coalition together. And this year, a global petition was handed in, which basically is supporting what is now a new legislation in Indonesia. It's called the Animal Protection and Welfare Bill. It's currently being debated and reviewed, but if passed, that would be a law that would essentially ban dog meat trade. It would not allow the trade, sale, and consumption of dogs or cats, which would be incredible and something that we're pushing really strongly towards. We had a really great development in Indonesia. The picture you can see here with all the people on the stage, this was at a conference with our partner, Jakarta Animal Aid Network. We did at the end of last year. And Jakarta, which is the current capital city of Indonesia, they banned dog meat in this capital city, which was huge. And the governor of that city came to open our event and gave a brilliant speech about how he thought this should be the example for the rest of Indonesia. To have somebody of that level of influence coming to our events is testament to the success of the work and the effort that's been put in. So what's next? Essentially, we're looking at developing these kind of, like I said, for Vietnam, Cambodia, Indonesia, we want legislation and a sustainable plan to ban dog and cat meat trade, as well as all the other associated issues that come along with it. But we want to see that in Cambodia, Indonesia, and Vietnam by 2030. 2030 is quite a key year because there are other global strategies. There's this strategy called 0 by 30, which is a globally agreed strategy to end human deaths from dog-mediated rabies by 2030. I know that's a bit of a mouthful. Essentially what that means is lots of countries that are rabies endemic are obligated to meet that target and are being really, there's quite a lot of pressure for them to do that. And what we're saying, which is evidence-based and part of where our work is really focused, is that you will never eliminate rabies in your country if you have dog meat trade. You've got millions of dogs being picked up, moved around, driven across the country, killed in all manner of terrible ways. That needs to end for you to fix this problem. So that's really where we're driving our efforts for the next 4 years. In Vietnam, in Da Nang, we're looking at doing a model, we're calling it a model locality. Essentially, we need to prove our theory works so that we get buy-in from government stakeholders to roll this out nationally. So you can keep an eye out for that. In central Vietnam, that is something that we'll be looking at, this kind of One Health holistic program in Da Nang. The other one as well that's really stands out for us as a big area of work is in Cambodia. So as I mentioned, Siem Reap already banned the dog meat trade, which is amazing. We now need to work with them to help continue to implement and enforce the ban. But what we also recognize is if millions of dogs aren't being picked up and killed, they have to go somewhere. So there is a surge in stray and roaming animal populations. So what we're going to do, what we are doing, is we're going to open a CNVR clinic, and we work to provide free sterilizations and support with people transitioning out of dog and cat meat trade, and provide veterinary care, vaccinations, and free support to people in Siem Reap. So end of this year, keep following us. There's going to be a lot of exciting stuff coming out from that. So I appreciate you all. And again, once thank you for giving us your evening, your time, your attention. And I hand back to Elise now for Q&A, I think.
That's it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Matt. I know the work that you're doing is, of course, important to everyone, but particularly for our Australian donors and supporters. It's definitely always been one of our most supported campaigns, because I think with Australia's connection with Southeast Asia and the tourism and things like that. So thank you so much for sharing that and the progress that's been made. So yes, we're almost close to time, but we've certainly got time for a couple of questions in there. So I'd kindly invite our 3 speakers to switch on your cameras so we can see your faces again. And I'll just direct a few of the questions that have come through from our audience. I think we'll go in the order of which the presentations went. So Pia, we'll start with you. We have a question here where your work takes you to complex and very high pressure environments. Could you share a moment from the field that really stayed with you, whether it was a rescue or an interaction with an animal that moved you, and essentially like how that reminds you in those maybe tougher days why it's so important, the work that you're doing?
One moment that has stayed with actually forever, who will stay with me, was the rescue and relocation of elephant Matubala in Pakistan, Karachi. She was taken as a baby calf from the wild in Africa together with her sisters and brought as a gift to Karachi. And there they were separated, and Matubala spent years alone in a tiny enclosure at the Karachi Zoo, and her only companion and friend was like an old tire that she was carrying around everywhere and sleeping with. And we really tried for PAWS, years of advocacy and negotiations with the authorities, you know, to reunite the sisters, because they were actually only a few kilometers apart, but staying over 16 years separated. And finally the day came that we were able to reunite them. Unfortunately, we lost one of the sisters beforehand due to neglect and inappropriate keeping. And when we moved this 4-ton elephant through the busiest city in the world, you know, the city was standing still. They blocked all the streets for this elephant. It was like a huge event. And then when Matubala, so we didn't know how Matubala will react to her sisters, right? It's 16 years ago that they saw each other as babies, and maybe they would not recognize each other. But when Matubala arrived, they actually recognized each other immediately, and they were literally running towards each other. And the most impressive moment was when Matubala, she of course took her tire with her, you know, in the transport crate and everything, like she had her tire with her. She passed and handed over the tire to her sisters as a present. And you could literally see the smile and happiness in her face. I didn't know that this is possible in elephants, but you could really see it. And this was really something so amazing for the whole team. Like I literally cried because I couldn't stand the emotional touch that all the situation had. And yeah, moments like this will remind you of the incredible emotional depth that these animals have. And not only elephants, I think all of the animals we work with have those. And this is what makes this work matter so much.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing that. So for you, Louise, I saw a few people were reacting, rightly so, with shock at the fur, the fake fur and the deception that we've found in Australia. So what sort of common, shall we say, fake fur products are we finding in Australia for sale, and how can people help to support the Fur Free Australia campaign?
Yeah, I think some of the most common ones are what I showed in my presentation, which are a lot of key rings, fluffy baubles, toys. The products we just purchased online were very kind of cute products, little animals that are key rings, etc. But the other place you find the real fur masquerading as fake fur is pom-poms and trims on jackets. So I think it's all of those products that people would not suspect. I think that another issue is just the cheapness of these products. I think when people see things that are $5, $10, for example, that key ring I showed you, I think was $5. People do not expect that to be real fur. In terms of people supporting and getting involved in the campaign, I think that like a great first step is to sign on to our petition calling for a Fur-Free Australia, which we will share with our email. And once that you've signed that, you will start getting communications from us about how to get more involved, because we'd really love to have more people join our local council ban campaign. Right now we're doing it in New South Wales, but we definitely want to expand that into every state and territory. And just a quick plug for that, it's the most amazing group of dedicated people. We meet once a month, and it's really just empowering and inspiring to be surrounded by other people that share the same kind of values and compassion for animals as you. So yeah.
Well, I think you're in the right community for that as well. Thanks, Louise. And just over to you now, Matt. You know, I think we're all sort of can understand the work around the dog and cat meat trade would be incredibly tough and very emotionally draining. Given everything that you've seen over the years, like what keeps you going? And were there any moments or changes that give you hope and keep you motivated to keep fighting for an end to this trade?
Yeah, thank you for the question. It is difficult. I mean, when I first started in this 2019, 2020, my first job was to go to the slaughterhouses and to investigate, to gather footage, to meet people. And, you know, it's hard to express just how horrendous those places are. I think over the last sort of 5 to 6 years now, there has been so much progress. I mean, really, it takes events like this often to sort of remind me as well. You know, you get busy and kind of stuck in the work. And then when you look back at everything we've done, all the changes and all the impact, I mean, that in and of itself, seeing, you know, updates from dogs that have like managed to survive and end up rescued and living in happy homes. Sadly, you know, that's very much the minority, but those rescues, those opportunities we can get. And then when you see people in the countries that we work in, where we are guests and we are, you know, sort of privileged and grateful to be able to work here, that they really want to see change and they really advocate and support, and that helps move legislation, that helps move everything forward. So yeah, for me, I think this is one of those things that when I first started, I couldn't see an end in sight, and now I really can. And that to me is quite inspiring. Still a lot of work to do, and we still need a lot of help to get there. But you know, I do believe we can do it. So that's enough, I think.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And I realize we've just gone over time, so I'm going to do one bold final question to all three of you. For anyone in the audience who's feeling inspired today, but not sure where to start, what's one simple action that you would encourage them to take this week? So we'll start with you, Pia.
Sorry, my connection was really bad. Can you
Oh,
repeat
no,
the
that's
question
okay.
again? Sorry.
It was so for anyone in the audience watching today and they're not sure where to start, but they're inspired, what would be one simple action that you would encourage them to take this week?
I think the easiest way is to get on our website of For PAWS, to go through the rescue website and see what you feel, from your heart that you want to support or get more information on. We have a lot of rescues going on, especially this year already, and last year was a lot of things were happening. And with Argentina, I really recommend just going on the website or donation page and get the information you need.
Amazing. Over to you, Louise.
I'm going to answer a different question to what you asked, Louise. I'm not going to talk about it as a single action, but I just want, to remind everybody that individuals make a difference and we can all make a difference. And I can see that there's a question in the chat from Susan, and Susan worked alongside me and really drove the council ban on the northern beaches, from investigating the local markets, finding fur products, engaging with her local councils and now her local councillors, and now to see that we have another jurisdiction in Australia that has banned fur. I mean, this has an impact on the global fur trade. So I think just, that reminder that we're all powerful with our actions.
Fantastic.
And
Thank
thanks
you.
to Susan.
And final word to you, Matt. So sort of one simple action that you would encourage anyone watching today to take in response to what we've discussed tonight.
As much as I don't want to advocate for you to spend more time on your phones, I think it can be really helpful to share and sort of, I have family members who I've been working on this for a long time and they still don't really know what I'm doing. So sometimes a simple share, a repost, a conversation with a friend about something that's important to you and maybe how they can help, because the more people that can understand the things that are important to you and to us, then the more sort of resonant positive impact that you have in the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And that brings us to the end of tonight's webinar. Thank you so much to Pia, Louise and Matt for sharing your expertise and your insights on these very important issues that are facing animals. And of course, a thank you to everyone who's joined us for this webinar. Everything you've heard tonight, the rescues, the advocacy, the global work to protect animals, is only possible because of you. Every donation, every petition signature, every conversation that you have about animal welfare is driving the change we've been talking about tonight. And you are just so vital to this work. You make it possible for our teams to be on the ground in these crisis situations, to challenge these systems of animal cruelty, and to create lasting change for animals around the world. If you would like to learn more about the issues from tonight or any of our other animal welfare projects, you can reach out to our team via our office details, which will be listed in the chat, or head to our website at for-paws.org.au. And please follow us on social media as well to stay connected with our campaigns and rescues, and lots of very happy animal updates as well. Thank you again for being part of our very first webinar. We're so grateful to have you with us on this journey to make animal welfare worldwide. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you.